Welcome to Homebridge Inspections Podcast. Before we dive into this, please like and subscribe. If you're following us on Rumble, please follow us, leave comments. We're always looking to continue having a blast. I have another podcast, but I also own a homebridge or a home inspection business. Figured might as well give some good information here and have fun doing this as well. Today we're going to be doing a lot of things on this channel. We're going to be having interviews with real estate agents talking about the business specifically. We're going to have actually clients that I've worked with before in the past. We're going to have some brief educational stuff. We're going to go over a wide variety of topics on this channel. However, today, this being our very first episode, we're pretty excited about it. I want to specifically tackle exactly what it is that a home inspector does. What is our job? There is unfortunately a lot of confusion in this industry, and not only specific to Washington State, across the country. There's a misconception about what it is we do. Often people think that we're contractors, or that we can repair things, or that we tell them how to repair things, or that we're actually there to make them run from the property. There are agents that believe that we're there to help them sell the property. I mean, there's a wide variety of misconceptions, as I said. Some things that need to be cleared up. I work with a ton of fantastic professionals, and you build a relationship, and everybody understands exactly we're in this together. We're in the real estate industry. We all want to help each other. The home inspector's fiduciary job, right out the gate, is to inform his client. And again, we're not there to sell a house. We're not there to make them run from a house. We're there to inform them. Now, there are some occasions when, we have to consider that, especially in a situation where there's like a first-time home buyer. They're 23 years old. This is their first house. There's a range of emotions going on. They're excited. They're nervous. If this is an absolute disaster of a house, of course, we're there to protect them from making a poor financial decision. Often things can get overlooked. Home inspections get waived. It is amazing the things that go on in this industry. But number one, we're there to inform our client. This is one of the things that is always lost in translation is when we arrive at a home and we want to tell our clients about what's going on with the house, you can easily get lost in all the details. As home inspectors, we know a lot about all the major components of a home, from your foundation, your roof, your heating systems, your plumbing systems, your electrical systems. We're taking off panel covers. We're looking at a lot of different things. However, when there is a significant concern, our responsibility, our requirement is always to refer them to the appropriate contractors that are actually the licensed professionals in those departments. Pardon me. Now, I'm licensed as a home inspector, which means I went through a certain set of training, and we continue our training and continue our knowledge base over the years. So we make sure that we stay up to current building practices. Then you have the actual electrician, where that's all he does all day. So there are many times that, we run into situations and we got to inform our client, hey, let's just talk about, very old wiring systems and some of the stuff that can be, fire hazards and shock hazards. Immediately, we want to get that addressed by the licensed professional. So we're kind of like the checkup guy. You buy a used car. Well, most people, when they buy a used car, what they should be doing is they should be running it over to a mechanic to get checked out, or somebody that they potentially know that is a mechanic. Now, a house. Now, in a used car, you're talking maybe $2,000, $6,000. Your home, as many know, especially in Western Washington, in this region, they can be anywhere from $300,000 up to $1 million easily, depending on the neighborhood, the side of Washington that you're in. Are you up north by Seattle? There's a huge range. Our market is hot over here. Property values have skyrocketed over the last 4 years. Pardon me. A lot of that was during the COVID era, which honestly really had us scratching our heads. There were all the lockdowns and the masks, and a flock of people were moving to Washington State in surges. And you often, when houses were up for sale, you were getting 10 offers on one house. Houses were on the market for, not even 24 hours. And there was just an explosion of offers on houses everywhere. Often these offers were including waiving home inspections, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But one of the problems is that when that was happening, then we would do an inspection after the fact, after they closed and moved in, and we'd have to sometimes tell bad news. That COVID era was such a set of chaos, really. It was a lot of fun, but it was stressful because we were constantly running around from one town to another, sometimes doing 3 home inspections a day. It was so chaotic, but it was so exciting, and a lot of people made a lot of money, especially on the real estate agent side, because so many people were moving in and so many houses were just flying off the shelves. There weren't enough houses on the market at one point. Now, like many professions, ours is not immune to it. When a particular profession or a market is hot, many people rush in and dive in to get on board with that. They want to know, they want a piece of that pie, right? Here's one of the drawbacks of the home inspection industry. The initial licensing requirements, the education is very, very minimal. And it's unfortunate. In fact, when I was on the licensing board, I had brought this to their attention several times. We're talking a total of almost 3 weeks. And that just stunned me. I remember when I first got my license, I was actually shocked because we were talking about homes here. When you have this wide variety of areas of the home that need to be checked out for all different types of deficiencies and defects, from from rot, plumbing issues, electrical fire hazards, you name it. We're checking out every aspect of that home. So again, in that surge, now there's a lot of home inspection talent in the state of Washington, but unfortunately, like any profession, there is a ton of poor professionals. And that's what we saw. And they say, well, yeah, after a couple, 2, 3 years, poor ones will weed out. And that is true. But it caused a lot of headaches in the process because people didn't know what they were doing. And now you had a combination of things. You had a lot of people that were purchasing homes in a hurry. And then qualified home inspectors were just so booked up. And then you have new home inspectors that are trying to, get their name rolling out there, understandably. The American dream, you want to start a business and get things going. But there was poor training, and it was just it was a bad set of circumstances all the way around. The ingredients for a disaster were there, and we saw several of them in that time during the COVID era. Because there were poorly trained people that dove into the industry real quickly and immediately went out and got to work, and often were undercutting the business, selling for inspections for extremely cheap because they're trying to get their name rolling, but they just didn't have the training. They didn't have the appropriate training. This side of the industry, you're supposed to ease into it and build up a reputation, build up your knowledge. I still think the inspection industry as a whole, that licensing requirement, the education should be at least, at minimum, 8 to 10 weeks. I mean, there is a lot to learn about homes. Now, once you get your license, of course, we're like many fields, you're supposed to stay on continuing education. Keep you up to date on new building practices and often things that you were not aware of yet. I mean, it's impossible for everybody to know everything. So, with that said, now we're starting to see that weeding out, if you will. The market's taken a strange little bit of a turn this year in 2024. A lot of that had to do with politics. Now, we've just recently, and generally in election years, things typically slow down a little bit. People want to see what's going to happen with the election. And we are off and running now as of January. We have a new administration that's coming in. We're going to see what happens with that. And like clockwork, this is my second election season. Business picked right back up. It's funny how that works, and not to mention, now we're getting into the holiday season, which is also the election season. There's a lot of contributing factors there, but this industry is a lot of fun for potential home buyers. What you want to do when you're researching, because there are a lot of home inspectors, there still are. Um, a lot of them have kind of gotten out of the business, but there's still many, many, many home inspectors all across Western Washington. There's a few things you want to inquire when you're interviewing a home inspector, or if you're looking at their website. Make sure they're qualified. Anybody can get a license, and of course, in the state of Washington, you do have to be licensed, but you want to check out those qualifications. Don't be in a rush. Ask the questions. You're going to, once the word gets out there that you're in that market, you're going to be flooded with home inspectors calling you. You want to make sure they know what they're doing. So when you're on the phone with them, there's a few questions you want to ask. Do you go in the crawl space? Do you go in your attics? Do you go up on the roof? And that is an important one. It is so important because now with this era of tech, a lot of home inspectors are pulling out drones. We do not use drones philosophically. I think you're being lazy, whatever you want to call it. It's most important that you're on the roof looking at the shingles whenever you can. I suppose drones could have their benefit in certain situations, but the industry was up on roofs for many, many, many decades now without using drones. Drones are toys, and there are a lot of toys out there. Ask your home inspector, is he on the roof? Now, if he's on the roof and he uses a drone, fine. I'm not too worried about that, but you want to make sure that that home inspector is actually physically on the roof any chance he can be. Are they looking at your electrical systems, plumbing systems, heating systems, insulation? Get as much information from him or her as you can. What are the reports going to look like? That's another thing that's just so important. If you're looking at a home inspector's website, if they don't have a sample report, move right along to the next. In fact, go to homebridgeinspections.com and you can see one of our sample reports. It's a perfect example of what should be posted up there. Read thoroughly. And it's easy to do. Set aside at minimum an hour to make some calls because it's so important. I can't tell you how many times I've received a call from somebody who picked a home inspector. It was just, Mike home inspector. They got there. They don't know what the home inspector is supposed to be doing. They have a great presentation. They have a great little closing at the end. And then they get a report within 24 hours, but they don't know exactly what it is that they were supposed to be doing. And this is where it can get a little hairy because then now you've got another potentially 20 to 30 days before you close on that house. When you move in, and this happened all too often in the past few years, they moved in and that home inspector missed one thing after another. They chose that home inspector likely because they were cheaper, trying to save money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to find value in what you're picking here. Because you spending $400 or $500 to protect you on a $500,000, $600,000 house is well worth it. People are coming in there with that $150 and $200 inspections, and it's usually a tell sign right there that they're new to the business, or they could even be struggling. It's tough to say. You want somebody that's established and qualified, because then what we would find is then we would receive a call from a real estate agent saying, "Hey, my client moved in. Would you mind going over there and double checking that house because they're finding a ton of things?" The next thing immediately after that, when we find things and we give them a second report, not only did they pay one fee, now they've paid a second home inspection fee. we're finding what was potentially missed. And often you can figure that out. Yeah, this has been going on for a while. A home inspection, before we really go into that, what occurred there, often, a home inspection is a snapshot of the property as it sits that day. And we can't predict future behaviors. Don't have a crystal ball. You'll probably hear that from real estate agents too. They don't have a crystal ball. We're checking that house out there for you right there, then on the spot. And that's something that needs to be understood, especially if a home is on the market and there's people still living there. Now you got another 20 or 30 days to close, things can change. Plumbing leaks can occur, windows can get broken, you just never know. But in these multiple cases, we would get a call, go back, do a second inspection. And again, let me remind you, you already paid one home inspection fee, and now you're paying a second because the first one didn't do things right. We come in, find all this, and often what was turning around, and there's even some big home inspection firms that shall remain nameless, and those of you that know me know exactly who they are. There's one in particular that is the most sued in the state of Washington. And it's incredible because of things that get missed. You don't want to have to go down that. You don't want to move in. You've got your baby crying. You're getting settled in, and then suddenly you look up and there's water coming through the ceiling because he didn't check the plumbing systems properly. You don't want to find out later. And we saw this specifically. We opened up the hatch and there's 8 inches of water entirely in that crawl space. Sadly, there's way too much of that in this industry that happens because of poor training and people rushing to just dive into the business. So I cannot stress enough, if you're in the process of purchasing a home, you want to get that home checked out by somebody qualified. That is the key word, qualified. License is great. They got to be legal, but you want to make sure they're qualified, and there is a drastic difference between the two. For people that are getting ready to sell their house, that is a great opportunity for a home inspection as well, because what we're doing there is we're telling you about the house, some of the things that a potential home, in the event, well, let me not get too far ahead here. When you're getting your house prepared to sell, when we perform it's called a pre-listing home inspection. When we are checking out that house for you, 95% of the time, it kind of thwarts off potential buyers from having their own home inspection. Because they know it's been inspected, you're potentially showing the buyer the report. However, that does not guarantee that a buyer still will not have their own home inspection. It's very rare once you've had one as a pre-listing, but occasionally it does occur. And when that happens, we, as your inspector when you were listing the property, we're also telling you what potentially another inspector could find. This also gives you the opportunity to repair things before you put it on the market. We find a huge plumbing leak, you call a plumber, get it fixed. We edit your report. We're helping you prepare that house so it'll sell. And when you get the information from a qualified inspector, like what we do in our reports, and please go to homebridgeinspections.com and look at our sample report, you're going to see the level of details that we provide. And even little things. Caulking needs to be added here, paint chips, this kind of thing. But as the pre-listing inspection, the key is any big ticket items that you can get handled before you put it on the market. So in recapping again, we do buyer inspections for if you're purchasing a home or if you're potentially listing your home. And you want to make sure that that home inspector that you choose, I can't stress this enough, when you're online, when you're talking to your real estate agents, because real estate agents, they know us. And they usually have 2 or 3 that they generally work with. And they're going to put you in the right direction with people. You can also put some trust in your real estate agent, that your real estate agent is only going to work with qualified people. That's not always the case. But if you've got a good real estate agent who really cares about you and your future, and is putting the time and the energy in, not just going, hey, let's put an offer on this house. If they're really saying, well, let's take a look here, and they're at a slower pace, that is the sign of a good real estate agent, because they care, and they're going to point you in the right direction of qualified professionals like myself, plumbers, electricians, HVAC contractors. We all work together to help you with your home. Everybody, thanks again for listening to our first episode here. There's going to be a lot more to come, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, we're going to have interviews, and we're going to be talking a lot about the industry, changes coming up in the industry, qualifications you should be looking for. Please leave comments, like, subscribe. And again, if you're following us on Rumble, follow us, and the same thing, like and comment on our channel. Thank you so much.